Now that I'm a super huge channel of over 400 subscribers, I need to find a hot new title to play for that YouTube algorithm. That new release Baldur's Gate 3 seems popular, and super relevant.
It released over a year ago. You're late to the party, you absolute cabbage.
Well damn, somehow the wheel of time has continued to spin whilst I scuttle away my days playing various RPGs from the 90s. That's alright though. BG3 is a touch too shiny for my channel anyway. It would probably make my computer explode into a fireball. Or maybe a lightning bolt? Some sort of level 3 spell anyhow. We need significantly less pixels. And since we're late anyway, let's go all the way back to the start of the Baldur's Gate saga, released over a quarter of a century ago. So in reality, I had planned to play Soul Reaver for my next video, but playing through Eye of the Beholder 2 for my last video really got me thinking about the Baldur's Gate series, and all the parallels it draws from those early Westwood D&D games. And I was just hankering for some old school RPG magic. For the couple of you invested in my Legacy of Kain playthrough, don't worry, more is coming. Raziel isn't going to cast himself into the abyss. For Baldur's Gate itself, we're going to be playing the Beamdog remaster of the game, mostly because the name of that company is awesome, and I wanted to make a stupid, low-quality animation of a dog shooting a beam. Awesome. Anyway, the Enhanced Edition is pretty well an improvement across the board, including modern resolutions, modern comforts like allowing a zoom in, and most important of all, making arrows stack to 80, rather than the vanilla 20 limit on stacks, meaning you're spending a quarter of the time and a quarter of the inventory space on dealing with arrows. That alone is reason enough to go with this iteration. In fact, the only misstep as far as I'm concerned is that they decided to redo the in-game cinematics and dream sequences. Same sounds and voiceover, but the visuals have been updated. I'm probably biased, but I really preferred the original CG effects over the almost comic book style they went with for the remaster. The original game released in 1998 and was developed by Bioware. This was their first ever RPG series developed, and you still see the remnants of it in their later releases like Jade Empire, Mass Effect, and my favorite modern game of theirs, Dragon Age.
You can't call a game released in 2009 modern, you turnip.
I have it for my Xbox 360. That's still like a new console to me. The intro to this game goes pretty hard, and has one of my favorite quotes to start things off. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. When you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. Great mood setting. We cut to the roof of a tall building on a rainy night. A man is thrown, bloody and battered, to the edge of that roof. A sinister man in heavy armor effortlessly throws the man to his death with the ominous proclamation, "I will be the last, but you will go first." And that is the entirety of the introduction we get to the game. The series was so popular that I have to imagine most people have played through this by now and know exactly what's going on here, but on the off chance that you haven't, I hope you'll stick around to uncover the many mysteries of this game. And if you do know what happens, stick around as we revisit one of the best Dungeons & Dragons stories ever told. So Baldur's Gate arguably invented party-based isometric RPGs. And if that sounds like a whole bunch of fancy words to you, don't worry. We're going to go over in detail what this game is all about. Most exciting of all, I promise not to call this game a Metroidvania. The game was similar to the Eye of the Beholder series in that you would be controlling an entire party in combat, making use once again of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition rule set, with some minor tweaks. Unlike Beholder, however, Baldur's Gate goes leaps and bounds farther to develop not only your own character, but also the characters that you will be surrounding yourself with. Gone are the days of recruiting a random dwarf in the catacombs and never saying another word to them. Each new character you add to your party will have its own backstory, potential quests, and needs, and can even possibly leave your party if you don't uphold their beliefs. This was accomplished through a very rudimentary reputation system, wherein you gain reputation points for doing good deeds, or lose reputation for doing bad deeds. I'm going to delve more into the specifics of this as we progress the story later, but suffice to say, when you are on a quest to save the realms from the resurrection of an evil god, you may need to get creative to keep your evil party members from defecting. Outside losing party members due to failing quest objectives and for reputation issues, you could also recruit party members who relied on having another to stay in your party. For example, Jaheira, the powerful druid fighter hybrid, is an invaluable early game character, but she won't come along unless you also take her far less helpful husband, Khalid, with you on your quest. There are workarounds to keep only the members you want, but they're not very nice. Outside these existing party members you could recruit, your own starting character was a complete blank slate. And with the great variety of companions in the game, you really could make any class you wish and still be able to build a nicely balanced party. As this is a D&D game, you can make just about any class you can think of, from fighters and paladins, to rangers and thieves, to the more magical mages and clerics. When I've played these games in the past, I have always gravitated toward fighters, or more often than not, paladin characters. Something about having a heavy armor-clad juggernaut figure to lead your party of adventurers always felt right to me. For this playthrough, I decided to do things a bit different, and I chose to make a mage for my player character. And not just any mage, but an invoker, a magic user who gains bonuses to spells specializing in destruction. The really cool thing about making a mage character in this first game is that all your player character's experience, spells, and stats will transfer over to Baldur's Gate 2 when the time comes. So by building up your spell repertoire as a mage in the first game, you will be super well set once BG2 starts. Also, let's be real, melee warriors are fun and all, but the different things a magic user can do in this game are amazing, especially in the late game. You can take the most difficult encounters in the game and trivialize them with some strategic thinking. When building your character, your skill points are determined by the roll of a dice. You get a certain amount to distribute based on how high you roll. Now, unlike Eye of the Beholder, you can't just set your stats to whatever you like, but you can continuously reroll until you get a nice high number. Me personally, I'll usually reroll until I get 90 points to distribute, and before the purists come after me, the game allows you to save rolls, so they must intend for you to do this.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
All your stats here will cap at a maximum of 18, but BG1 has a skill book hidden away in the game for each skill that will increase its associated skill by 1 point, allowing you to even go over the usual cap of 18. Again, making a point of collecting these will net huge rewards down the line, as skills you buff up in this game carry on to the next. Having 19 int as a mage is pretty much a must, as any lower and you won't be able to learn all the spells in the game. Once your party is built, the actual gameplay of BG1 is fairly complex, and was what I would consider semi-turn-based. Essentially, when combat starts, everyone would be moving in turns, but those turns were calculated in the background. So, for example, two characters meleeing each other with similar speed factors would trade equal blows. Mages would cast spells at a certain interval, and ranged would do the same. Now, when you have a party of 6 adventurers and are being attacked on all sides by monsters who take their actions based on AI, it could be daunting to try and control the battlefield. That's why the game allowed players to pause the game to issue commands. You could pause, queue up some spells, use some consumables, order your party members to strategically reposition, and so forth. Once the pause was taken off, your party members would all go about their assigned tasks. Depending on the complexity of the battle, you may be pausing each round to reissue orders, or you may just keep the game unpaused and try to control in real time after unleashing that initial salvo of orders. This is the first game I can think of that employed this semi-turn-based style, and I have to admit my biggest complaint with BG3 is that they removed it. This game always thrived on that ability to choose whether the battle required tight party management or if it was trivial enough to steamroll in real time. It just gives such a unique sort of control of the action. Anyhow, outside combat, the game would see you exploring up and down the Sword Coast. Outside chasing your own destiny, the game world was massive. You'd be finding villages, events, and unique people and places throughout. Side quests were in mass abundance to give you the nudge to explore the world, or you could just travel in a random direction and see what's going on, often being rewarded with some new experience or treasure, or with massively powerful enemies that would wipe out your party. That happens too. There wasn't much locked off to the party once you were outside the starting area. With the exception of Baldur's Gate itself and a couple story locations, you could really make your own way across the coast. Speaking of, we should get to that. I have probably replayed Baldur's Gate more than anything else I've ever posted on this channel. A big part of that is the customization and wide open game world. But another big part of it is the story. This game is dripping with it, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't absolutely stoked to be going through it on the channel. In the effort to keep from going completely off the rails and making this a 4-hour video, I'm going to focus in pretty heavily on the main story. But don't worry, we'll have our fair share of side quest tomfoolery to talk about as well. This epic opens up with your freshly created character just standing outside the inn, safely sheltered in the castle walls of Candlekeep, a fortress dedicated to learning and knowledge, and your only home since your adoptive father Gorion took you in many years ago. At the outset of our story, we have received a mysterious summons from Gorion to stock up on supplies and meet him at the steps of the library. Popping in to the inn is a necessity, not only to stock up on supplies, but also to meet old Winthrop. If you haven't heard, his hotel's as clean as an elven arse.
My hotel's as clean as an elven arse.
I believe we're to assume that is quite a high standard of sanitation. The rest of Candlekeep serves as a tutorial for new characters. You can learn all the ropes of the game and even cure a cow of its stomachache. Top tier role-playing stuff. Moving to meet Gorion, we're stopped by our childhood friend, Emowyn.
Hey, it's me, Emowyn.
She seems to already know more than we do about leaving the keep, but remains tight-lipped on it all. We say goodbye and meet up with Gorion, and with little more explanation we're out of the castle and out into the wilderness. Don't worry though, Gorion is a powerful mage, so nothing bad is going to happen to us. Within mere moments, something bad happens to us. We're stopped by a warband led by a mysterious armored figure. He says, "Hand over your ward, and no one will be hurt." That's us. We're the ward. Gorion isn't having it though. He sends us running and puts up a hell of a fight before falling to the armored assailant. Daylight breaks, and just when it seems we have nowhere to turn, Emowyn shows up.
Hey, it's me, Emowyn.
She wants to help. She says Gorion had notes on him with more information, and that we should search his body. The letters are still quite vague outside stating someone or something is actively coming for us, and that a moving target will always be safer than a stationary one. I don't know if I agree. Candlekeep seemed a hell of a lot more defensible. Of note, the letter is signed by someone named simply E. D&D fans will probably guess who that is. For the rest, don't worry. It will be revealed in time. The letter furthermore talked of friends at the Friendly Arm Inn to the north. So that's where we're going. Arriving at the big stone fort, we're accosted on the steps by an assassin mage. This is a fun theme that will continue throughout the game. Progressively stronger and stronger assassins will come against your party as the quest continues. They are always a good test of the party's strength. This one here is usually a bit of a challenge at a low level, but I get wildly lucky with 2 direct hits and he dies before he can even start casting a spell. Inside, we meet Jaheira and Khalid. Both are friends of Gorian's. They unfortunately know almost nothing about the situation you're currently embroiled in, but are more than willing to join you in finding your purpose in this world. They do ask one favor in that you eventually lead the party south to Nashkel. Its mine is having issues and is contributing to an overall iron crisis across the Sword Coast. We team up, and Jaheira will be with us for the rest of our quest. Khalid will have an unfortunate accident before we can get that far though. Before going to Nashkel, we come across a fun event on the roads. A female dark elf running for her life from a member of the Flaming Fist, essentially Baldur's Gate's police force. We stop them both before it can go further. The elf, Viconia, begs us to help her, saying she's done nothing wrong and is being hunted for little more than the color of her skin. We ask the Flaming Fist what his plans are, and he's pretty adamant about killing her, and it is about the color of her skin. What kind of adventurer would I be to allow a damsel in distress to go unhelped? We take Viconia's side and kill the Fist officer. I mean, the fact that he also drops plate armor is a factor as well. Viconia asks to join up with the party, and as she is a cleric of Shar, and not the evil goddess Lolth, I think she's trustworthy enough. She is still an evil character though, and she gives us a reputation hit, and will leave if we get too popular. But we can counteract that in a handful of creative ways. My preferred method is to kill a beggar here and there. It gives a quick drop to your reputation to keep our party from getting too big of a head, and really, who's gonna miss 1 or 2 peasants? It's not like they have money. Before making it to Nashkel, we reach Beargost. This is a good-sized medieval city with a ton of side quests. Of note, one of the houses here is infested with spiders. Now, I recall from my many playthroughs that someone wants you to clear the house and bring a spider corpse as proof. But for the life of me, I can never remember where to turn this quest in. This leads me to inevitably killing all the spiders, every single playthrough, and then carrying around a spider corpse for the rest of the game. Oh well, the spiders were good experience anyway. Moving south, we finally reach Nashkel. We make a beeline for the mayor. He recognizes Jaheira and Khalid in our group and lets us know about the troubles plaguing the mine. It seems workers are going missing in the depths, and the ore that is coming out is tainted and weak. He wants us to get to the bottom of it. We will, but first, we can find the next member of our team and a fan favorite, Minsk the Berserker and his space hamster companion, Boo. He's an interesting fellow. For those not versed, Minsk has taken a few too many bonks on the old noggin, leading him to have some interesting beliefs. Namely, the belief that his hamster companion is from outer space. But brain trauma aside, Minsk is a powerful fighter in melee combat, and a much more interesting fit for the party than a lot of the more bland melee options out there. There is one hitch though. Minsk will join, but he won't stay for long unless you agree to help him rescue his charge, Dinah here. She was captured by gnolls after Minsk's latest bonking. A small price to pay for the greatness of a miniature space hamster in our party. We make a detour to the gnoll stronghold, but on the way, Khalid meets an unfortunate end in a village of Zvarts? Exvarts? I don't know. I've always had trouble pronouncing these guys' names. Low-level blue dudes. A pretty sad death, but unfortunately, if you want to keep Jaheira and lose Khalid, the only way is for him to die. He died doing what he loved, bleeding out. We make our way through the gnoll stronghold with little difficulty and rescue Dinah here. She is, like me, an invoker. I'm a big fan of the magical utility of 2 mages, so lucky for her, she can stick around and won't have to get the Khalid treatment. At this point, we mostly have our party for the rest of the game. There will be one more switch up mid-game, but for now, this is what we're rolling with. We head back to the mines, and a quick chat with the foreman gets us in. The mines themselves have a cool atmosphere, but are also the first place to demonstrate one of the game's biggest flaws. That is, overly narrow tunnels. You'll notice when playing this game, the pathfinding of your party is rudimentary at best. Combine that with very narrow hallways, and you'll find getting your party to move the way you want becomes a struggle. This issue is compounded with the kobold ambushes around each corner and floor traps littering the lower levels. Try as you might to get your tanky characters or trap-spotting thieves to the front, inevitably they'll all get tangled on each other and push your squishy mage right into the line of fire. Areas like this can get a bit tedious in terms of party control, but luckily a good majority of the game takes place in open areas, so this is only a problem sometimes. Anyhow, moving through, the mine is mostly just inhabited by kobolds and the occasional giant spider. At the bottom we find the lair of Mullahay, a priest of Cyric and apparently the cause of the issues in the mines. Turns out he's been directing kobolds and tampering with the iron. We take him out and find he was tampering with the iron at the order of someone named Tazok, but little information is given to the whereabouts of this Tazok. We do have a lead though. Someone named Tranzig in Bergost is an intermediary for the letters Mullahay has been receiving, and he should know where the brute and his brigands are hiding. Out of the mine, we get a cool encounter on the way back to Bergost. Dritzt is out here wandering the woods killing gnolls. This is a cool encounter, but a perfect example of what I spoke of briefly in my Menzo Berenzan video. There is literally no reason for Dritzt to be here. I may be getting my fantasy dates mixed up here, but if I'm not mistaken, during this time frame in Dritzt's history, he should be adventuring on the Sea Sprite, fighting pirates with Dundermont and Caddy Bree. Maybe he's on some shore leave. Anyhow, nice to see him. He doesn't have much to say, and it's definitely just an Easter egg for nerds like me. We reach Bergost, and after administering several wallops to Tranzig's tender spots, he reveals Tazok's bandits can be found in Larswood or Peldvale. Off to the woods we go. Lots of woodland hijinks later, we find a group of bandits and convince them to take us to their camp under the guise of wanting to join up. Once we arrive, we find Tazok is a half-ogre, and not super pleased that we're here. We fight, but he decides we're worthy of his group and lets us join up. He pisses off to go do ogre-type nonsense, and we're left with free reign of the camp. Within mere moments, we pick a fight with a hobgoblin and have the entire camp attacking us. I don't do subterfuge. After clearing Tazok's tent, we get another thread of the mystery. Turns out that a merchant group, the Iron Throne, is behind hiring Tazok and his bandit groups to cause this iron shortage. The exact reasons for this are unclear, but we also discover that the Iron Throne has a secret mine base in the Cloakwood. So off we go. More woodland carnage awaits. The woodland route into Cloakwood is chock full of hazards, from bears to wyverns to spider-infested woods, but we persevere and reach the Iron Throne mine at the heart of it all. The guards posted out front are a bunch of losers, but one of them has boots of the cheetah which we can loot, which give permanent hasted movement to one party member. A great item for getting around faster, but awful for when you're trying to keep your party close together. I give them to Minsk. I feel canonically he is the most likely to recklessly rush into combat. We move into and through the mines. Similar to the mines of Nashkel, only much more difficult. These enemies are a touch more organized than the kobolds we faced earlier. About halfway through, we find Yeslik, the dwarven cleric/fighter. A dwarven cleric. I cannot say no to that. Sorry, Vaconia. Only room for one, and dwarves trump elves for me any day. Also, means no more need to balance reputation for evil characters. We're all good, or at least neutral, now. Turns out Yeslik knows these mines quite well, as they used to belong to his clan until they flooded and killed most of his people. Yeslik made friends with the leader of the Iron Throne, Realtar, who betrayed the dwarf and tortured the location of the mines out of him, then subsequently drained the mines and set the dwarf to work as a slave in his own ancestral home. Absolutely rude. But the good news is, the mines can be re-flooded. They're sealed by a magical plug, the key for which is held by the master of the mines below. Looks like we have a means to stop the Iron Throne's operation here for good. Down further we go. On the final floor of the mines we find Daveorn, a powerful evil mage. Well, sort of. See, I've played this game probably 30 times through, and I know these fights like the back of my hand. I know the hallway here is lousy with traps, so we disarm those before engaging with the mage. I also know Daveorn's only strength is magic, so hurling a couple silence orbs his way before starting is good too. He retains the ability to teleport despite being silenced, but otherwise we've fully neutered this once powerful mage. Teaches him to enslave dwarves. Not on my watch. We learn a bit more from, you guessed it, a stack of letters found on Daveorn's corpse. These Iron Throne dummies would sure do a lot better keeping their conspiracy concealed if they didn't all carry a briefcase of incriminating evidence everywhere they go. Anyhow, these notes confirm the Iron Throne is behind the iron shortage, but are shifting all suspicion to the Zhentarim, a mercenary company. Outside full frontal assault on the Iron Throne, at this point the only other lead we get is that apparently the Iron Throne has infiltrated the Seven Suns Trading Company, another merchant group in Baldur's Gate. After flooding the mine, and presumably sending poor Viconia to a watery grave, the time has finally come to breach the gates of the great city itself. On the way there, we're stopped by Scar, a leader in the Flaming Fist. He wants us to investigate the Seven Suns Trading Company. It seems they have been making just wildly awful decisions of late, and he thinks something fishy is going on.
Did someone say fish? I love fish.
Seems our goals are aligned with the Fist, so as long as no one finds out we killed one in the wild to save Viconia a while ago, it should be fine. Every time I enter the city for the first time in a playthrough, I'm just awestruck at how big it really is. Broken into multiple districts with dozens of shops, NPCs, and quests. I can't think of another game from this era that could boast not only a huge city, but also feel so full of life and activity. Just about any building you can enter will have something going on. Regardless, before we can get to that, we're once again stopped at the gate. This time by a man in red. The man is Elminster. He has stopped us a couple times prior in our journey, but this is the first time he's introduced himself. For those not versed, Elminster is a legendary mage in the realms of Faerun. Possibly the most powerful mage to live, and a chosen of Mystra. He's alright, but my favorite mage still has to be Gromph Bainry, Archmage of Menzoberranzan. He's got some pretty cool accomplishments, like enslaving a primal and killing the avatar of a god. That has nothing to do with this video though. Elminster doesn't give us much except to say that we can trust Scar and Duke Elton, the commander of the Flaming Fist. He also gives us an ominous warning that some evils are bred in the bone, and we'll have to overcome those sooner or later. Foreboding. Oh, also, he's the one who instructed Gorion to move us from Candlekeep. Thanks for that. He leaves again, and we're left to explore the great city. We head over to the Merchant District to check out the Seven Suns to find out what's going on there. It doesn't take much prodding to get the many merchants here to reveal their true colors. They're shapeshifters. Every single one. The entire company has been replaced. Luckily, in the basement we find the leader of the Seven Suns. He's captive, but not yet replaced. We set him free, clear out the remaining beasts, and head to see Scar. Our success at rooting out the problems at Seven Suns gets us an audience with Duke Elton himself. He wants us to investigate the Iron Throne directly next. He wants hard evidence that they are behind the iron shortage. I mean, don't we have like a fist full of incriminating notes already? Some even from Realtar himself. I guess that's not good enough. I'm okay with it though. It's time to run rampant through the halls of the Iron Throne. See how they like being attacked at random. The building that houses the trading company is essentially a big tower. You can fight your way to the top, or you can successfully lie all the way through to the final floor without fighting anyone. Security here is lackluster. I'm surprised they've been able to pull such a complex conspiracy without being caught up to this point. On the top floor is one of the harder battles of the game. You essentially enter the floor and the combat begins immediately. You can buff up before taking the stairs, but there's no time for positioning here. You're under fire right away. There are a few ways to deal with this, but my favorite is to blanket the room with fear effects, whilst making myself immune to scatter the enemy forces. After this is done, it's just a matter of picking off the enemy spellcasters before they can come to their senses. Alternately, if you really struggle with this encounter, you can enter the top floor, pop off a spell, then immediately duck back down to the floor below. This will both do damage to those above, and force them to follow you down, giving you ample opportunity to prepare an ambush. However you choose to do it, once they're all dead, we find more incriminating notes. A couple revelations here. Turns out Servok, Realtar's son, is the one who's been sending assassins against us. Furthermore, he lied to his father and claims we're agents of the Zhentarim. Suspicious. Nothing that outright proves the Iron Throne's involvement in the Iron Crisis here, but there is evidence Realtar will be visiting Candlekeep for some sort of meeting to posture for more power. Before returning to the Duke, you can actually go up on the roof of the Iron Throne and look out. There's nothing up here, but if you're paying attention, you'll realize this building is the one from the intro cinematic, where the big armored guy threw someone off. Neat touch. Back with the Duke, he agrees we need to revisit Candlekeep to find Realtar, and get the evidence we need. He gives us a special book that will allow us re-entry, and we're off back to the start of the game. You can wander Candlekeep and reconnect with all your old childhood friends and mentors. One neat addition here is that you can bump into Catterley from the Cleric Quintet, another quite popular series of D&D books. This game is so chock full of references it's hard not to nerd out. After the unexpected cameo, we enter the library. The place is huge, but on the top floor we find Realtar and his group of co-conspirators. You can probably approach this diplomatically if you want, but with Yeslik in your party, that's a tough sell. Realtar is the one who tortured and enslaved Yeslik after all. Also, one of the guys there says, and I quote, "Crash dem mutton heads." Nobody calls me a goddamn mutton head. We kill the group with little effort, but something is wrong. No incriminating notes on the corpses. Not one. We've just killed a group of merchant company leaders and found nothing to prove a right to do it. Even worse, we did it in a place that is generally considered neutral ground. Whoops. The local guards find us, apparently led there by none other than Servok, Realtar's son and apparent mastermind of this whole plot. Not wanting to turn our childhood home into a war zone, we allow them to arrest us. In the cells of Candlekeep, things are looking pretty grim, but one of our childhood mentors believes in us and sneakily teleports us out of the jail cell into the catacombs below. A pretty dangerous place, but at least we have a fighting chance. Wildly, none of our equipment was confiscated in our arrest, so we're still decked out. We make our way through the catacombs, running into pretty much every single person that helped raise us, but each is revealed to be a doppelganger, just there to mess with our mental state. The whole place is capped off with a rather long back and forth between you and the apparent group of Elminster and Gorion. They're of course doppelgangers, like duh. Gorion is dead, how stupid do they think we are? On the way out of the catacombs, one of Servok's lackeys reveals part of the plot. Servok had wanted his father to die all along so he could take command of the Iron Throne. Not for monetary gain, but in order to use his influence to start a war with Om. No idea why he wants this, but we'll find out. Back in Baldur's Gate, the city is in an uproar. Much has happened in the short time you were away. Scar is dead, and Duke Elton is bedridden with a mysterious illness. A lackey of the Iron Throne has taken their places, so you'll find no comfort in your old allies at the Flaming Fist. Servok is in the city, but he's all but abandoned the Iron Throne, and is now set to be crowned a Grand Duke for providing iron and supplies for the inevitable war with Om. My first instinct is to check with Duke Elton. We are hunted by the Flaming Fist for our supposed crimes, and being able to clear our name with him would do a lot to help us stopping Servok's plot. Outside the Fist's compound, we meet Tamako, Servok's lady friend. She gives us some more insight into something we already heavily suspected. Both you and Servok are Ballspawn, literal children of the now dead god of murder. Servok wants you dead as he wants to be the only remaining Ballspawn on Faerun. Further, he's trying to trigger a war with Om for the sole purpose to create as much murder and bloodshed as possible. He thinks such a great offering will elevate him to become the new Lord of Murder. Tamako is sharing this with us as she wants us to stop Servok, but not kill him. She seems to have an infatuation with him, and fears that if he succeeds in his plan, she will lose him forever. We agree, although reluctantly, not to kill Servok. Not a promise I intend to keep, but it's okay. I had my fingers crossed behind my back when I made it. She lets us know not only will Servok become a duke, he's planning the deaths of the other dukes at his ascension ceremony. The assassins he hired can be found in the Undercellar, a shady club below the sewers. It's not an RPG without some walking through human waste. In the Undercellar, we find Slythe and Kristen, your typical psychopathic murder couple. Honestly, an embarrassingly easy fight for how much attitude they give you. With them out of the way, the plot to kill the Dukes is at least weakened, but we still need some evidence of Servok's wrongdoing if we want to crash his party. So we head back to the Iron Throne and see what we can rustle up. At the top once again, we're ambushed by Scythandria, another woman apparently vying for Servok's attention. It must be his bad boy persona. We take her down and finally get some of the concrete evidence we need. Not only are there notes here proving Servok hired assassins to kill the Dukes, but we also get a hold of the man's diary. It mostly confirms things we already know, but it is a detailed account of Servok's involvement in pretty much all the bad things going on across the Sword Coast. More than enough to block his bid for dukedom, and potentially enough to stop a full-on war with Om. Before going to crash the party at the Ducal Palace, we zip back over to the Fist compound to save Duke Elton. His healer was in Servok's employ and actually the one causing the damage. We save the Duke and deliver him to his friend the Harbor Master, where he can recover in safety. Time to go wrestle some lords. Arriving at the palace, Servok is assuming command of everything. All the bits are falling into place. Before we can intervene, half the crowd shows themselves to be doppelgangers and go to kill the Dukes. This fight is a tough one from a strategic perspective. You don't have to keep the Dukes alive, but I like complete victory, so I won't take any less. The challenge is that the Dukes are pretty squishy, and the doppelgangers will make a line for them. Worse, you can't use any AoE damage like Fireball or Lightning Bolt, as it will just hit bystanders. Once again, the use of fear and some lucky saving throws get us through. The Dukes are grateful for the save and want to know how they can repay us. We let them know that Servok is responsible for all of the events happening across the Sword Coast, and that he is not what he seems. We give the evidence to the Dukes, but before they can read it, Servok, knowing his plans have been foiled, attacks. Before we can kill the armored brute, a mage loyal to him teleports him away to safety. The Dukes have magic of their own, however, and send us quickly after the murderous Ballspawn. We won't be done until Servok is dead. We follow him through a gauntlet maze under the Thieves' Guild, and before much longer we find ourselves in an abandoned undercity. Pretty badass, minus the hordes of undead wandering the place. I always sort of wondered if there was some deeper lore to the undercity, like why is it there, or what its significance is, but for now we'll just say it's kinda neat. At the center of the ruins we find a temple to Baal. Probably a good place to look for our wannabe god half-brother. Before we can enter, Tamako is waiting for us outside. I guess we did make her a promise not to kill Servok. Well, that was a lie, and she isn't happy about it. We take her down as well. Probably for the best that we end the Murder God fan club. In the temple, the final showdown is done super well, and is easily the most difficult encounter in the game if you aren't prepared. Luckily, I have an entire playthrough worth of hoarded potions and buffs to help me out. We are buffed to absolute hell, practically untouchable. I start combat by carpet bombing the room with Cloud Kill from both of my mages. This gets them headed my way. Once they arrive, I have everyone pile on Servok. His allies are little more than a nuisance with my massive spell protection. The only reason poor Minsk gets so near death is because I didn't have a magic resist potion for him. We finish off Servok with a salvo of magic missiles. That's right, wannabe god, I just killed you with a level 1 spell. His death instantly ends the game. There's a final cutscene where we see Servok's divine essence leave his body, and a statue of the warrior crumbling to dust. But his is not the only statue. There are dozens, if not hundreds more. He was not the last Ballspawn, and neither are you. Some grim implications here, but that's a tale for another time. So here's something fun. I thought BG1, being a beloved and timeless classic, would prove one of the harder games to find negative reviews for. I was wrong. The Steam page alone has some absolutely wild takes from people on this game. And it's not even the usual, this game is old, therefore it's bad. It's like really wild takes on the game that make me almost feel like the people writing them are trolling. Take this first one for example. Horrible tutorial. I tried to get past it 3 times, but I can't due to boredom. Also, it's annoying to hover your mouse over icons for 2 seconds just to find out what they are. You got stuck on the tutorial? When I first read this, I was thinking this fellow got stuck in Candlekeep, but it's not even that. This guy decided to do the optional tutorial that Beamdog included with the remaster, and was upset that it was not high-flying excitement. You know it's optional, right? Like, I agree, it's super boring. I played through it out of curiosity, and it's what you would imagine. A lot of dialogue boxes telling you how to play the game. But like, it's optional, and in no way reflective on what the rest of the game has to offer. Hell, going through Candlekeep helping out the people there is all you need for learning. You can pick this game up on the fly as your journey unfolds. I'll agree the tutorial is kinda junk, but you can quite literally ignore it and just play the game. It's like saying you won't play the game because the instruction manual was boring. As to your other weird gripe, hold tab to highlight things and bring up the names instantly. You're welcome. Next up, for wacky reviews of a 25-year-old game that offend me deeply. One of those games that was revolutionary, and so the lack of a real cogent story didn't matter at the time. If you like your character's AI sucking butthole, and them getting clogged up in narrow hallways or trying to enter a building, this game is for you. Way too long also. Quests were garbage. Combat encounters were boring and tedious. Just play Dragon Age Origins if you want a game like this. Like, what? No story? This game drips story. That's like 50% of the game. It's a sprawling adventure about your rise from scared orphan to hero of legend. You have dozens of quests and hundreds of NPCs to interact with. The main quest involves conspiracy, intrigue, and mystery as you ascend in power to seek revenge and justice for the death of your foster father. You rub shoulders with Grand Dukes, peasants and gods alike. What part of this game had no story to you? I can understand if the gameplay wasn't for you, or if you didn't jive with the story, but it is an absolutely wild take to say one of gaming's most famous and beloved RPG titles has no coherent story. Big yikes. The party AI does suck in tight corridors, you've got me there. But again, too long? It's an RPG. It's supposed to be long. And even so, it's not like BG1 is egregiously long. I did a solid amount of the side content here, and the whole thing took me about 20 hours. Sure, I've been playing this for years, so I know where I'm going. But still, even in a new playthrough, if you just focus on the main quest, you aren't going to be at it much longer than I was. But I mean, I think that's sort of missing the point. It's D&D, immersive role-playing. The point, at least on a first playthrough, isn't to speedrun through the whole thing. It's to get engrossed in the world and explore every nook and cranny. Discover all the fun and interesting ways you can build your party and change your world. What kind of mad lad picks up an RPG and just says, okay, this better be a short experience. I hate my RPGs to take more than an hour or two. It's ironic that the review also mentions playing Dragon Age instead. I love Dragon Age for a lot of the same reasons I love Baldur's Gate. And one of those is that it is long and engrossing. The guy wants a short game, then recommends a game that is just as long, or possibly longer. If you're finding the combat boring, all I can imagine is that you're running a party of 5 fighters and a cleric and just spamming attack and heal. The game has such a robust and tactical magic system, or even surprisingly versatile stealth systems if you prefer. The biggest draw for me replaying this time and time again is seeing how I can use the many systems at my disposal to conquer the numerous challenges the game throws at you. I cannot imagine whoever wrote this likes RPGs. Either that or it's a troll and I'm just tone deaf. Could be either. Baldur's Gate, in many ways, saved the D&D franchise on PC from fading into obscurity, breathing fresh life into a series that had grown stagnant. Baldur's Gate not only spawned a slew of sequels in Baldur's Gate 2 and Throne of Ball, but also created a rush of other games on the Infinity engine that would generate cult followings of their own. In a modern context, they had spiritual successors in the Pillars of Eternity saga, which you should all play, and even helped inspire Divinity. For me, and probably many others like me, they were my first introduction to Dungeons & Dragons as a whole. The existence of these games has fueled an entire generation of gamers not only on the PC, but on the tabletop as well. And that legacy has continued to the modern age with the release of the massively successful Baldur's Gate 3. None of that could have happened without the release of this scrappy little isometric RPG back in the late 90s. Whether you love this game for what it is, or love it for its place in CRPG history, It's hard to deny that this title has probably had one of the biggest impacts on the RPG marketplace in the last 30 years. It is a household name for a good reason, and I imagine it will continue to be for some time. That's all I have to say on Baldur's Gate. If you want to fight me about how the tutorial ruined the game, I'll be ready in the comments. Just remember to memorize your mage spells first. See you in the next video.